Next before the committee is Carrie Selleck. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the attached proposal fiscal year 2021 MIDC budget request that is due to MIDC State of Michigan on or before April 30th, 2020.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Geiger. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you. I feel like I just finished fiscal year 20, which I did, but here we are for fiscal year 21. So this year we're putting this in front of the board prior to submitting it to MIDC because there are some new things in here. So we try to work very closely with our MIDC regional representative to see what surrounding counties are doing with their programs, what kinds of things the state is willing to fund, because we are all still kind of learning here. And so we've been having some discussions with our regional representative about ways that we can bring more resources to Berry County for our indigent defendants. There's a lot of money being spent in indigent defense. The governor's proposed indigent defense funding for next year includes a $36.5 million increase. So I think the proposed budget is up to, I believe it's $117.5 million for this program for all of the counties to comply with the requirements. We certainly want to make sure that Berry County gets their fair share of that funding. So there are some new things in here, and I'm sure, as you will see, the first two new things really are two new positions. And I did ask Lieutenant Nevins and Under Sheriff Houchley to stay in case there are any questions about the corrections officer position as well, because we worked closely in kind of crafting how this is going to work, as well as with our regional representative, because I'll be honest, I did not know that was an option until she discussed it with me, and I know some of our surrounding counties have gotten help with those types of positions. So we are asking for the creation of assistant public defender position. So that would really be an assistant to me. Now, this individual will have a caseload. I'm not technically supposed to have a caseload in my job description, but I most certainly do. I handle cases that need immediate attention, such as probation violations and things of those nature. So this individual would have a caseload, mostly probably misdemeanors or low severity felonies. Our caseloads have increased since last year. I believe the number that Judge Skipper gave me, I think it was about 160 more felony cases last year that we had in this county. I can tell you, I went and pulled some of our numbers. So we have been doing this technically since December of 2018. We started tracking our numbers really in January of 2019. So the two big things that we have to track, or the two big standards that really we're working with here, are counsel at first appearance, which is arraignments, and meeting with attorneys. So the first thing that we tackled here in our office, in the public defender's office, was making sure there was always an attorney present for an individual during an arraignment. In 2019, we did 1,665 arraignments. Most of those were handled by myself. There are a handful that were handled by retained attorneys, and there are a handful that were handled by attorneys on our contract when I did take a day off here or there.
That's not allowed.
You know. So, and that's one of the big things. Right now, our contract attorneys are kind of my backup for arraignments, which they're willing to do. The problem is we pay $65 an hour for that, and they're all in private practice making $200 an hour. And attorneys, or arraignments, I should say, can, even though we try to keep to a schedule, can kind of happen anytime during the day, depending on the circumstances. And it's hard to get an attorney to drop everything at a private practice and come over and handle 5 or 6 matters for me. I try not to have sick days. I try not to take days off. I am mandated to go to trainings. I would like to take a vacation this year. And so that is a struggle. And it's not that people aren't willing to help, but it is a struggle. And I need to make sure that we have someone here, and it's easier to have someone in the office who knows the process and knows all the paperwork, because it is a lot of paperwork. So that would be another responsibility of the assistant public defender. Really, they're going to be my backup. The other aspect, aside from having a caseload, is we have wanted to, the way we handle out-of-custody arraignments, that's what I was doing this morning, and I apologize, I had to run back and do one that was late real quick. Everybody meets with me. We go through all of the information, and then they come back at a different date for a pretrial. There are some cases, a vast majority of some of our misdemeanor cases, that we would like to handle all in one single court appearance so that people don't have to take multiple days off work, find childcare, those kinds of things. Driving on a suspended license, operating without security, no operator's license on person. We are not talking about domestic violence cases or assaultive offenses or drunk drivings, but there are a lot of traffic misdemeanors that really could be handled all in one hearing, but I can't be in two places at once. We can't. We simply don't have the capability of doing that at this point. So that would be another help. I could be doing the waiver of arraignment process. They could be set for a pretrial on the exact same day at the exact same time. We could have an assistant public defender upstairs meeting with the prosecutor. They meet, everything gets handled. The person doesn't have to come back multiple times, because those are the types of misdemeanors that Judge Skipper has said he is not going to put people on probation. He is not going to put them in jail for those types of incidents. And if we can work it out all in one shot, it really helps so that that person doesn't have to come back. I had no idea how much operating without security was charged. I did not know it was a one-year misdemeanor until I took this job. And most of the explanations are, time got away from us, we didn't realize our insurance had lapsed, we just couldn't, or we lost our job, we couldn't get there, we've taken care of it, we've fixed it, and we have to make those people come back for a second court date, and we don't want to have to do that. So that's kind of where the assistant public defender fits in. They could also do legal research, handle the misdemeanor appeals from district court to circuit court. Those are not common, they do not happen a lot, but it happened right before I took this job, and it was kind of a big cluster I stepped into. So that would be another responsibility. They could also handle conflict cases. There are some times when we have multiple defendants all involved in the same alleged criminal activity, or we have cases where you have multiple defendants and witnesses, and people have represented different witnesses, or they've represented different defendants, and you have trouble amongst your contract attorneys with everyone has a conflict, who is going to represent this person. We would have to go out and find a totally different person if I couldn't do it myself, but this assistant public defender would be able to handle those conflict cases as well. It would also reduce or take away, as I listed there, the need. This year's budget has arraignment coverage at $33,800, so it takes out that need for that funding. It also takes out the need for the $29.25 for the misdemeanor circuit court appeals, so it's really just a matter of moving some funds around within the budget. The other position that we would like to create is a corrections officer position. One of the standards that we have, one of the two that we have to comply with, which I discussed, the first is appearance, or counsel at first appearance. The second big standard is meeting with our clients in a timely fashion. If they're in custody, it's within if they're in local custody, it's within 3 days. If they're out of custody, it's different. But this position deals with the in custody. Our sheriff's department, and I thank them all the time, has been tremendous to work with. They bend over backwards to help us as much as they can. What happens is I have to speak to every single person before they're arraigned if they're in custody. We do that via Polycom so that I'm not running back and forth between the jail, but I have to meet with all of those people first, or whichever attorneys are covering. So the jail has to move them from their cell to the arraignment room so I can talk to them while they're doing their other duties as well. There can be delays in that if they're doing fingerprints or if it's mealtime. They have to move people around for visits. They have to move people around for attorney visits. So there are times that we have to wait. There are times that we are not allowed as attorneys to come in and visit. They try to not prevent us from visiting as much as possible, but meal times, they simply don't have the staff to move people around. And this can be difficult because a lot of our attorneys have the lunch hour off where they're not in court, and that's a time that they just can't go visit at the jail because meals are being served and they don't have the staff to move people back and forth. Like I said, I did not know that this was even a possibility. So when it was brought up as a possibility, I know Kalamazoo got 2 positions when they first started with their program down there in their jail to help with the movement of inmates for arraignments and meetings with attorneys. This would mean that our attorneys could go anytime, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, regardless of what is happening at the jail, and this person is there to move our clients to and from meetings. That person is there to move our clients to and from arraignments. This does not mean that this person can only do that. They can certainly help out with other aspects of the jail if they're not busy moving people for us. They're housed at the jail. That's where they work. They don't work in our office. And they certainly can do that. It's just they have to be available. If the magistrate picks up the phone and says, I need someone in the arraignment room right now, that is the person's responsibility first and foremost to make sure that that happens. So that is where that comes from. And like I said, our sheriff's department has been tremendous. We are very lucky here in Berry County. I went to a leadership conference a few weeks ago. The first question they asked all of us chief public defenders or managed assigned counsel individuals was to introduce ourselves and say, what is the biggest problem you're hearing right now? I was the only person in the room that said, realistically, we don't have any issues, because we had buy-in from the county commission on down. That is not the norm. We are the exception. Most counties do not have buy-in from their judges. They do not have buy-in from their county commissioners. They do not have a working relationship and an openness with their trial court staff. We are very lucky here. We do. Everyone is on board and understands that realistically we all have the same goal, and that's to make sure that justice is served and everybody's rights are protected. I was the odd man out, I will tell you. Everybody just looked at me and said, you're not telling the truth. This can't be true. It is true. We have had issues come up, and we work together as a team to figure out and how to solve those issues. And so this is part of where I think that team effort comes in. We want to make sure that those in the criminal justice system who need help get it from us as well. And if this is something that the state is willing to provide funding for, I am all for that, and that's why I've included it in here. Some of the other big changes. We are asking to pay our attorneys, our 10 attorneys, an equal pay. Most of our attorneys on our list have a substantial amount of experience. The newest member of our list has 30 years of experience, and he gets paid the least amount of money based on the current tiered schedule that we have. All of our attorneys keep a pretty even caseload. I am very diligent about making sure that their caseloads are as even as can be. I will tell you that our attorney with the least amount of experience had the most amount of cases last year. He exceeded everyone else by about 25 cases because he handled a majority of the misdemeanors and the low severity felonies, and he was paid the least amount of money. So we are looking to make everyone's pay across the board equal. They're all doing equal work. They're all now doing the same types of cases. There's no one who can't do any type of case. And so we're looking to make that change. We are asking for an increased amount from the state for investigators and experts. Our attorneys are getting back to the part where, you used to have to ask the court for permission to spend money for investigators. Attorneys kind of got out of the habit of using those. They're getting back into the habit of using those, and it's really making a big impact on a lot of the pretty significant cases that we have going on here right now. The other really big change here, and again, this is one of those I did not know was an option until the regional manager told me about it. And that's on the last page. That's Public Defender Office indirect costs of operations. And Michael provided me with the breakdown that had been done back in 2019, which was perfect timing for our office. My understanding is most people are starting to put this in their plans, and this is reimbursement to the county of the indirect costs that it costs the county to have our office. So that number, according to what I was provided from Michael, is $22,602. So that would be money that we'd be asking for reimbursement from the state for. As you may recall, the statute indicates that every county has a local share. Our local share next year is calculated at $236,159.79. Anything above and beyond that amount that is required to make our program compliant with the statutes and to work successfully shall be paid by the state. And so most of the funding that's in this plan is coming from the state level. We're excited about the changes. The attorneys are excited about how things seem to be moving forward. They're having access to more resources. The clients, I have to say, have been complimentary of the systems that we've put into place, the efficiency that we have here. And again, I am eternally grateful that I work here and not in some of the counties that I met a few weeks ago, because we really do work as a team here, and that is not always the case. So I think that's all I have.
Any questions for Carrie?
I have a question.
Sure.
On the indigent list of attorneys, is that something that, it seemed like there were a lot of people that wanted to be on that list. Is that true? Is that a list that,
This year I received 13 applications for 10 spots. We
okay,
put it out every year because it's a yearly thing, so,
but they understand when they're going in that you may need somebody quickly, right?
they do, and it is part of their contract. It's just with the number of arraignments that have been increasing. I will say last Friday was kind of an odd day for us. It was the first time in weeks or a couple months that we didn't have one arraignment. So they do understand that, but it can be difficult because they also have to make a living outside of our contract. So they're as helpful as they can, and they sign up and they help me when they can. But it's difficult.
Should you have more choices then, more people?
We don't necessarily, the overall caseload dictates we don't need more attorneys on our list.
Okay, you said you had more this year, more cases, didn't you?
We did.
So,
But the issue of having an assistant, I think this is what you're getting at, is the arraignment coverage
I'd
part.
rather see the attorney.
Right.
Working what you ask them to do, so.
But when I'm doing arraignments, the attorneys are in court most of the time. They're not just in their office waiting for a phone call. They're usually already in court doing other things.
Oh, okay,
And
so you don't have that kind of notice
No.
ahead of time?
No,
All right.
not for arraignments. It's a daily thing. I actually look up on the jail list every morning to see who's in custody. It changes from day to day, and I haven't had a chance to even look yet today. But usually the attorneys are already in court, or they've already got meetings set up because we don't know from day to day how many people are going to be in custody.
So this assistant position is in addition to the 10 attorneys that you have?
It is. It is.
So the local share, based on the budget in front of us, is 236, 159.79.
Correct.
What was the local share for the 2020 budget?
230, I don't have it in front of me, but it's going to be close. I think it was about 232, 344 something. I think it was a 2.1% increase for next fiscal year that we were told to use.
So 232 last year, or the current year,
right
versus 236.
Correct.
So very minimal increase.
Very minimal. It was a 2.1% CPI increase for fiscal year 21 for the local share.
Okay, and when I look at the assistant public defender and the corrections officer, those positions are being requested. If they come back from the state as not approved, then those don't go through.
Correct.
Okay. I
Right.
just wanted to be sure that our local share wasn't going from
No, our-
33,000 to 62,000,
No.
that was something.
No, our local share does not change. And our regional manager, when I crafted this and had our regional manager through MIDC look at it, I don't want to send things to the state that aren't going to be approved. I don't want to waste that kind of time. I only want to send things in a budget that I know are likely going to be approved. And the information I have is there are surrounding counties that have a similar structure to what we have here. And these are items that are in their plan that have been approved. So we're not asking for anything outrageous, and she doesn't see any impediments to us getting those approved through the state. If the state were to say no, we would come back and we'd have to add in arraignment coverage and stuff like that again. But our local share does not change regardless.
And there was a $36 million bump in funds.
It's
For
in the
this?
proposed budget, yes.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Ben first and then Denise.
You say that you don't have the capacity or the time to be in these arraignments. What exactly are you working on?
Well, it's not to be in the arraignments. I'm talking about, sometimes I have to be in two different courts. Sometimes we have arraignments in circuit court and district court or in front of the magistrate at the same time. And they try to work very well to make sure that they're not demanding me over someone else. But all three courts do different types of arraignments, so, and the magistrate. So I'm doing that. I'm coming to meetings like this, and I'd like to take a vacation once in a while. Sometimes I have a sick day.
Yeah.
Those are the types of situations in which the arraignment coverage would come into play. for that part of the job description. It's really adding kind of an extra attorney to allow our attorneys to focus on the significant felony cases that we have had here. This attorney would have a misdemeanor docket, although we have increased our misdemeanor appointments too. Last year, we made 708 case assignments for various things. Now, that includes misdemeanors, felonies, probation violations at both levels. It includes specialty court violations. I also am the defense attorney for the sobriety court. Because I do the arraignments, it just made sense so that I knew who all of the players were and I knew the backgrounds of the individuals, and I'm the backup for adult drug court for the same reason. Trying to work with them so that they have money in their budget to do some other things because I am in the building. So it's really just a matter of the arraignment coverage comes in when I either have to be at a conference or I'm out sick or I'm on vacation, or we're hopefully setting some of these misdemeanors for same-day arraignment and pretrial so we can be in two places at once.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Do you already, have you created the position description for the assistant?
We're working on it. We've kind of gathered some surrounding counties' assistant public defender positions. So we're working on kind of a rough draft. We grabbed some from Calhoun County. I think Branch County has an assistant PD under this same type of system that we have. And so we're working on that.
And then the fringe on the second page, that's for your whole office?
That's the whole office,
Okay.
yes. That's the whole office, yes.
All right.
Yes, and what I did in terms of, and I'll be honest, what I did in terms of the corrections officer position, that salary range was provided from the sheriff's department. We put the max salary range on here so that the state knew what the max was. And the assistant public defender position, we asked the prosecutor's office what an entry-level assistant prosecutor salary range was.
And the sheriff's department is on board with the corrections officer being available to you when you need them?
They are.
I
We're
see.
ecstatic about the idea, so we would love to
Yeah.
see something like that. We do have some challenges, as Carrie has experienced, with trying to cover, certain time periods, but this would be certainly
Thank you.
And I will say, we did have those conversations because I had to make it clear. I mean, we get state funds, we're subject to state audit, you have to keep logs. I mean, we keep records, we have spreadsheets for everything in our office. So we had those conversations so that the sheriff's department understood where I was coming from and I understood where they were coming from. And I don't see where there's going to be any impediment to a corrections officer keeping track of what information we need them to keep track of.
Thank you, great. Thank you for working that all out beforehand.
We try.
Thank you.
Any other
Thank you, guys.
questions for Carrie? Hearing none, the question before the board is approval of the attached proposal of fiscal year 2021 MIDC budget request that is due to MIDC, State of Michigan, on or before April 30th, 2020. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Parker.
Yes.
Smelker absent. Connor.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes, the item is approved.
Thank you
ma'am.
very much.
Next before the committee.
Would there be any way that I could go so I could get to my appointment?
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for the interruption.
That's fine.
My name is Nora Hurst.
Thank you. It'll be making it a reappointment as long as the board approves. And so you are most certainly welcome to leave when you need to.
You got my vote, Nora.
Can we make sure that that door is not locked? If you'd like to leave now, you may, because I have no idea how long the rest of these agenda items are going to take.
I just wanted to let you know that I was here for it.
And I appreciate you coming out in this environment, so.
No problem. You guys have a glorious day.
You have a blessed day too.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Jim Dahl. So the question before the board is approval to spend $2,525 from the capital replacement fund to purchase a 100-foot floating discharge hose from Equipment Specialties Company, Inc. for use with the mini dredge purchased in 2019.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Jackson. The floor is yours.
Let me give you a little background check. Since 2018, we've been looking at a mini dredge, which basically floats in the water. You can suck the sediment out without bringing in big equipment. You don't tear up the property that you're going on because it just floats. Really nice setup. We found Piranha had the best one, so we asked for that to be in the capital gains or capital budget in 2019, which Michael set it in there at 16,104. When we went to purchase it, we found out that we bought it with 100 feet of hose for $14,750. The additional 100 feet that we needed, they said was $21 a foot plus $500 separate shipping. So we said, okay, we can get a better price on that. Michigan Pipe and Bell can get it, or there's a lot of distributors. Tammy's been working her butt off the last year researching all sorts of different sites, and we found out that there's no other company that has the same hose that floats and does the job. So now we're asking if we can get that out of capital gains. It's 25, 25, how's that? I guess that's what we get for trying to be cheap and waiting a year.
I tried to save. I saved a little bit of money. I don't remember how much I saved on that, so I thought, but even like looking online, I mean, there's no comparable, it's not apples to apples, the specs for the hose that you need and the fittings and the, Yeah,
it's pretty specific. We did save, Tammy did get the dredge company because we were buying it in 19. There had been an $800 increase. She did get that taken off, and that's where we ended up at the $4,750. So we saved $800 there, but not so much on the hose itself. And you wouldn't think floating hose would be that expensive. We checked the fire departments and online and all sorts of places, but it's a unique product.
Any questions, Vivian?
Can will the DEQ let you use that in the state? With a permit?
It's expensive.
Yeah, well, and that's the first project we were hoping to use it on is at Cuddy, underneath Patterson. So we
Okay.
need 200 feet of hose to float it over there to get to where we want to go.
Right.
And Dan Frederick says we don't need a permit because the Cuddy intercounty drain permit is good for 5 years. So as long as we get it done before that, we don't have to buy a $500 permit.
Excellent.
Yeah, so cheap.
but we need hose to do that.
Any other questions?
Can we find somebody in New Mexico that can bring it up in their car or something?
Aren't you going camping down there?
The mileage reimbursement
Got a
might be
cousin down there.
prohibitive on that.
We already checked. $425 plus the rent of a trailer and the mileage down and back. We
Thought
couldn't
you
save
have a
it.
trailer. The mini
We got
goes
a
on.
trailer.
There you go.
But I mean, yeah,
Just be paid time off.
yeah. So it was,
Any other questions for Jim and Tammy? Hearing none, the question before the committee is approval to spend $2525 from the capital replacement fund to purchase a 100-foot floating discharge hose from Equipment Specialties Company, Inc. for use with the mini dredge purchased in 2019. The clerk will call the roll.
Smelker, absent. Connor?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jackson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Wing?
Yes, the item is approved.
thank you.
All right. Appointments to the Mental Health Board.
How about the zoning board?
Oh, okay, zoning board. So my papers are mixed up. All right. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to reappoint Shirley Barnum and Richard Patterson to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3-year terms that begin on April 1st, 2020 and end on March 31st, 2023.
So moved. Support.
Moved by Parker, support by Gibson. Discussion. There was another candidate who had applied for the Zoning Board of Appeals. At this time, I think it's safe to say that his application has been permanently withdrawn, as he passed away last week.
Say so.
And rather than extend out these two positions and wait for interviews, I think it would be fair to reappoint, so that when our boards are able to meet again, we do not have to wait for interviews and stuff and unduly call citizens in during this
Right.
crisis.
Okay.
Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Connor,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Smoker absent, Wayne.
Yes. Zoning Board of Appeals approvals, reappointments are approved. The next question before the board is approval, or the chair would entertain a motion to reappoint Nora Hurst and Robert Nelson to serve on the Berry County Community Mental Health Authority Board for 3-year terms that begin on April 1, 2020 and expire on March 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Geiger. There were 3 positions open for this spot. The other candidate that we have had a conflict of interest and chose, rather than to remain in consideration, chose to stay with the other agency that there's a conflict with. So these would be reappointments for these two positions, and I think there's one position that we will deal with at a later date. Discussion?
I serve on that board, and she shows up at all the meetings. She does have some good dialogue and everything, and she is a user of the facility, so it's required that she fill that position, or somebody fill that position that's a actual user.
Any other discussion?
The other person?
What about Mr. Nelson?
The other one? I don't. Robert Nelson.
Been on that board for years.
Well, he's been on the board quite a while. He's in Florida, and we've been getting him on the phone when we have their meetings, teleconference calls and stuff, and he's pretty active on the board too.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is for the approval to reappoint Nora Hurst and Robert Nelson to serve on the Berry County Community Mental Health Authority Board for 3-year terms that begin on April 1st, 2020 and expire on March 31st, 2023. The clerk will call the roll.
Geiger,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Smoker absent, Connor,
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes. The reappointments to the Mental Health Board are approved. Next on our agenda is the big elephant in the room, discussion regarding the future meeting dates. Michael. I gave everyone a packet this morning. If I didn't pull the draft version of the local administrative order, there should be another one with the state seal or the county seal on it. And then we have some supporting documents in regard to the COVID 19 situation.
So are you saying this isn't a draft then with the seal?
This one is not a draft. That one is the final copy. We also, I felt it necessary to cancel the Thursday meeting and get that in the process as soon as we possibly could. And to that end, the church was eager to let us cancel. I mean, they're trying to keep their facilities uncontaminated as well. I'm sure they've canceled most of their services and just trying to preserve their facilities. So, Michael, do you have anything?
I would just throw out real quickly as we continue to monitor COVID-19 and take precautionary and if you may, progressive steps. We've been following what, of course, the CDC and the state Governor's office recommend, the local health department recommendations, as well as what other counties, and we're beginning to see a number of counties, a large number of counties, taking the next step. I would characterize it as and continuing to provide services, continuing to operate, but to do that in a manner that closes the building to the public and moves to a process where constituents are required to conduct business either telephone, online, through the mail, fax, or if it's in person, to be a scheduled appointment with a department or agency. So it requires, before the public comes to conduct business, that they contact the respective office, try to figure out if the reason for the business can either be conducted in a form other than in person at the building or postponed, and then go from there. We have crafted for discussion a document that follows with what Eaton County has recently done, and is in line with a number of, a laundry list of other counties and what they're doing. So I think that as I frame this, Heather, we would look to maybe talk about your meeting schedule, and trying to look at maybe postponing or canceling meetings until a future date. I think we've got things under control as far as claims. We dealt with the March's claims today. We appreciate your accommodation. It was on short notice, although everybody seemed to step up and review them quickly. But normally you get those a little bit more in advance, so thank you. So those are done, but we have presented a motion that would hopefully accommodate canceling of meetings. We have a draft for discussion of what we think and what we would recommend for closing down buildings to the public and a continuation of services. We also would look to, at the bottom, there are two additional motions on that draft for discussion. One would be providing the chairman of the board some flexibility to modify this operations plan as needed and necessary until the board should convene again, and then to provide 80 hours of additional sick leave. It would not be bankable. It would not be cashable. It would only be available for individuals to use in situations where they are sick. And the long and short is following with Colette's comments about trying to encourage folks not to come into the office and contaminate the staff, to where we're forced to move from a situation of providing services but limiting it to the public to a situation where we can't provide services. That's what we're really trying to avoid, if you may, is a close down. So we have a number of folks that would be new or don't have sick time available. This would just provide that safety net so that they can take the position. If they have a fever, they meet one of the criteria, stay home, right, and make sure that you don't have it and don't bring it into the office. So a variety of things I've thrown out, and I don't know if you want to start with the discussion of the plan at this moment.
So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion that in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19, Berry County and Berry County trial court operations will remain available. However, buildings will be closed to the public beginning Wednesday, March 18th, 2020 through Sunday, April 5th, 2020. Anyone requiring county services must call the respective office before traveling to a county building. All services that can be conducted alternatively online or phone or delayed shall be handled in that manner. Public shall contact the office or court in which they have business or in order to determine whether such business can be delayed, conducted over the phone or online. Public conducting business with or requiring court services shall refer to the Berry County Trial Court Local Administrative Order limiting access to court facility for the public health emergency for details. The county's main telephone number is 269-945-1400. Using the directory, persons will be able to contact county and court offices. If business must be conducted in person, appointments shall be required to be scheduled in advance through the respective department. Please visit www.berrycounty.org for information regarding department services and for updates on the status of Berry County operation. Those with scheduled appointments may be screened upon entering the building. Questions may be directed to the County Administrator, Michael Brown, at 269-945-1284.
So moved.
Moved by Geiger, support by Gibson. Discussion.
By screening, that means what? They're gonna take their temperature and all that, or what?
We'll continue to monitor, but it does mean that if somebody is showing signs of being ill, as Colette, our health officer, indicated, they had somebody that showed up that was ill, we will ask them to leave. We will work with them. That doesn't mean that they're going to be turned away from business. We will have an obligation and a responsibility to attempt to work with everybody to figure out what they need to do. But yes, we aren't going to allow them to come into the building. It is an ongoing, the comment fluid has been used over and over, and we will continue to monitor to see how fluid that is and what types of things we do use. Right now, we don't have a temperature gauge.
Well, I'm asking what the screening will entail then.
Right now, it's just going to be a visual type screening,
Well, and
asking
it-
somebody if they're having any symptoms or whatnot,
And as
The
the
town and all that.
those types of
As the
things.
departments create a schedule of appointments, the screeners downstairs will have that list of appointments and refer, others to, you need to call the department and you need to make an appointment.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we had someone that was capable of doing the screening.
We will,
If it's a health officer.
I don't know that it will be a health professional. All of the health professionals are tied up.
Right.
I mean, I just don't envision that we fall in the grand scheme of where the health professionals should be at, so we'll do our best. I just want to encourage, that the focus of this isn't on now me creating a whole bunch of appointments. We're going to do our best to try to limit the amount of people, and if somebody does require an appointment, it's going to be for a necessary and critical type of a situation. Not
I would think
because
that
somebody
would be
feels
the-
that it's urgent. We'll work with them to the best that we can to say, let's postpone that if we need to.
That would be the first part of the screening, would be that phone call, I think, I would guess.
Correct.
And I think it's important to note that this announcement mirrors the local administrative order from Judge Doherty that he signed this morning. And so his order directly impacts the clerk's office because of their close working with the courts. But she also has county responsibilities too, not just court responsibilities. And so we really do need to make sure that this decision dovetails and that we work together to make sure that our services are still being provided.
It is challenging. Right now is an unprecedented time where public health system, but the public health system is really just asking people not to move as much or any more than you absolutely need to, and that's what we're attempting to do is really encourage some folks, now that you have time because you're maybe off work or home, often feels like a good time to get things done, and we're just saying, please, let's see if we can help you do it any other way than having you come in and face-to-face.
Who,
Will this information be on WBCH and also in the newspapers?
We will move this information as to any source that we can, yeah. Yep, we will do our best to message it as widely and as often and as much as we possibly can. And there's no doubt there will be questions, both from the public and on the implementation from departments. I think departments have already started thinking about this. I've got a number of them that have contacted me to ask. What our real concern is if we get to a point that we have to shut down. How do we do that? What we do is, so much of what we do is implementation of state law. We aren't home rule or chartered, so we're implementing state law. We don't have the ability to decide if we're going to follow certain deadlines and requirements or not. State law dictates that. So until the state of Michigan, and that's, I think, everybody's hope, is that we don't ever get to a point where the system is so shut down that we can't do anything. But until there's some level of guidance from the state, there are certain things we have to do, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the courts, but I think the courts have worked really diligently to craft a local administrative order that does the same thing. It recognizes that there are just certain things that they have to do, and we want to make sure that we preserve our staff and our ability to do those things first and foremost and do them well, and anything else that can be done admittedly less conveniently to some people, but can still be accomplished, we'll do our best to do.
any other discussion?
I've got a question. Is it possible, I mean, I know you can call 1,400 and listen for a variety of different levels of where those phone calls are, but could we put those department phone numbers on a link on our front page on the website so that people could go, oh, there's the treasurer's number direct, and I can call that without having to go through the automated system?
Absolutely, and we will do that. I appreciate you asking that so that it's out there. But yeah, the messaging that we put out, to the degree that we can, will include that. It just, this gives a very compact number that anybody can call, and yeah, you've got to press 3 for this and press 4 for that. But you can get there. We'll put those lists out on our webpage, through the media, and get that information out there so that there is a more expeditious link if folks.
The other thing that Colette talked a little bit about, and I know that we're looking to try to keep our employees healthy, and further down on this page when we're talking about 80 hours, we want to keep our employees healthy as much as possible. Do we see screening our employees for fevers?
We will. I guess the answer that I can bring is, to the degree that we are screening anybody else. So I don't know that we, as I talk about appointments may be screened, that's to allow us that disclaimer that, you know, if it appears that you have symptoms, and we will do the same with employees, absolutely. We don't want anybody to enter into, we talk about.
But I'm asking.
Absolutely, you know, and continue to push that message that yeah, if you have any of these symptoms, and if it appears that way, we'll challenge some folks, and
I mean, having worked in this same system,
and having this sick time, have the ability,
sick all the time,
and we'll have the ability to send somebody home without them losing compensation, and say no.
So will security do this that's down there?
So,
or are we gonna have additional people asking questions? And
what I envision is for those that Our security is not going to be the ones that's screening employees. Employees will come in and,
No, not employees, I'm talking about, yeah.
but we will have to work through, because of course doors will then be locked, so that public just can't come and go. And what I envision is departments, as they set up appointments, and again, we're hopeful that those appointments will be limited to a minimum. We can do a lot of what we do, we hope, over the phone, by fax, online, and really that it's not going to be a switch to the same amount of people coming and going, just now doing it by appointments. We're going to be screening first to figure out, is what you need absolutely necessary, or can it wait until things go back to normal? I'll use an example. I can't speak on the court's behalf, but I can use an example where we had somebody that showed up and needed some assistance getting a document. It wasn't available online. That individual had received a notice that they were going to lose some payments through the federal government for a parental stay or care at the medical care facility if they didn't get this document. Well, if that's not online, we're going to help that. In that case, we probably still wouldn't need to bring that person in. We could find that document and either email it to them. So I'm just thinking that I think there's a lot of situations where we will be able to limit and not have people coming in. But for the screening, the first question is going to be probing by the department to make sure that, hey, have you been ill? Do you have a cold? If we have to actually schedule a face-to-face.
To that end, the sheriff's department has stopped some of their face-to-face service and have closed their service window, and so they are no longer doing the drug testing, the PBT stuff that they've been doing for the probation office, like over weekends and things like that, because of the potential contamination of their staff in order to keep that traffic to a minimum. I know that the COA has canceled most of their events for the next few weeks. I just, in the abundance of caution, until we know more about how big the peak is going to be and try to flatten the curve, I think that it's detrimental that we at least close to the public.
And we don't know, something could change tomorrow too. You gotta roll with the
Yes.
punches.
You want to come get on the mic? So.
Well, actually, I just want to, for a point of clarification, that are emergencies. Not conduct the hearing via video conferencing. We would screen past calls that we've been in contact with someone that's been sick or quarantined. Because we still have to be able to accept petitions for hospitalizations with a mentally ill person. Those folks might still be coming in. So that's how we would move forward in screening those cases. Anything that can be filed electronically, we've opened it up to allow people to email us documents. As long as the filing fee has been submitted, we'll continue to process that day-to-day stuff, things that can be mailed. It's just really limiting the access for the requirement of people coming into the court facilities and conducting business here. Go through MISDU. So we're trying to really just control the number of people that are coming in. But can I also just, while I'm standing and talking, the State Court Administrative Office, our regional administrator, has asked us to modify the title to our local administrative order to court plan. That allows us some flexibility and only to call it a local administrative order if we close down, which would require their approval.
So it's a local administrative plan?
It will just be court plan.
Berry County Trial Court Plan, limiting access.
Can I ask you a question, Ines? And what about employees? I mean, that, if you, are you following the same thing? If you think they may be sick, after they get here, send them home?
I would say if you exhibit any of the 3 symptoms that the CDC is identifying as the symptoms of this virus, stay home or go home and self-quarantine for that 14 days. That would be what I'm seeing a trend occurring.
Commissioner Geiger?
Are we getting a lot of emergency restraining orders for people that might be a harm to themselves or to others? Isn't that Kevin's law? I think they're pretty rare though, aren't they?
Under Kevin's law?
Okay.
What we're more likely to have, having been probate registered until
Mhm.
January, what we're more likely to have is a petition for involuntary hospitalization.
Right. How rare are those?
I would, without, I mean, because they ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
most things do.
okay.
Typically, probably no more than a handful a year.
So, from what Inez said earlier, it sounded to me like we had to have someone here in case of those situations arising. Does scale give us any leniency or flexibility in, having people file electronically or waiving fees?
If they're indigent, yes, there's a way of waiving filing fees, but for hospitalization, we're required to have someone available. In fact, I recall several years ago, Judge Doherty and I came in on a Saturday and held a hearing. You're really putting someone in an institutionalized for a period of time.
Right.
So we have to have those emergencies.
Okay.
And our plan provides for hearings that must happen.
Right.
So there are some that we just must do. And so we will continue to meet those requirements, but things that we can avoid, that we can move on without having any sorts of those ramifications, we'll move those.
Commissioner Connor?
What about your drug testing program? I mean, some of those are, to be in compliant with their,
A lot of the rules have been kind of lifted. I mean, this is not something we're all used to. What we're doing for drug testing is limiting the number 5 of the plan.
okay, I maybe hadn't gotten that far.
I think it's the first page at the bottom, maybe, or the second page at the bottom.
The 6 is at the second, by only 4 participants. So you'll make appointments for them?
Well, we
Or-
have that random drug testing, so
Okay.
they're being notified as as they're coming in today, that they're gonna have to come in, and they might have to wait outside to keep their social distance. But we will still do those while we.
Because they're like, their judge, kind of their sentencing, it's in that guideline, right, to have that done?
Well, there's that, kind of, it's a deterrent more.
Right, okay.
And right now, all of our treatment has pretty much kind of stepped up with sessions, so we really feel like we need to continue with some of that contact. To help people through this, so that they don't relapse.
Correct. Yeah, that's what, I wanted it to be a good thing for them,
Yeah, this is probably a very critical time for relapse.
right?
Any further discussion?
So what happens with Swift Insurance Sanctions Program? Is our swiftness removed?
Sorry.
What happens? Like, if there's a violation, where do they go?
If there's a violation and we're looking at jail, we would defer to our judge, our district court judge who's assigned to that docket.
Okay.
And ask the people to hearing. I think addresses any situation that we manage on a case-by-case basis. So it's not intended to prevent us from doing anything, because we recognize that there will be
Last question, why is the court's email sometimes shortened to berryco.org?
That is our email.
I think it's to separate county versus, I don't know, that's an IT question.
It's not sometimes, it's all the time. Any
So if somebody typed in infocc@berrycounty.org, it would get rejected?
If it was, if you were trying to reach a core person, if you were trying to email me and you put balspa@berrycounty.org, I wouldn't get it because I'm Berry CO.
If it says, if the CC is for the county clerk's office, they have county at the end.
Right.
I have both.
Yeah, I thought it was both.
I did reports, and now I'm at the county, so I didn't realize it until probably 6 months ago. I have both,
You had a lot of emails to look at, huh?
I guess.
Because they never shut your core one down.
Apparently, I didn't know it until it was brought to my attention.
This isn't a huge issue, but maybe once this national pandemic is over, we can look at that.
Any other questions?
No,
David?
just a comment, a friend who was a delivery driver who does multiple stops, he called it gunned, but lasered for temperature on 3 of his 10 or 12 stops. So the technologies out there for private companies are checking drivers coming in for temperature before they allow them on the dock or in the facility. I wouldn't likely advocate for that at this point, but if the severity of this continues or increases to the point where we may want to do additional screening either for employees or people coming into it, just something to be aware of. It is being done in the private sector fairly quickly, so I'm sure there's some technology out there that we could implement if needed.
I appreciate that. I just to give you a little, because I do understand that the devil, if you may, is in the details, and there are a lot of details to be worked out. So as we move forward and as we think about what are those next steps in implementing this, we will continue to look to the health department. So as we talking about doing those things, we don't intend to be or want to be an early adopter or if that makes sense. We don't want to be late as well, but we'll follow the health department and use practices that work and make sense, as opposed to just going out and trying something. We're always cautious of that we get that we're government, we're trying to serve the public, and if I appreciate that, Commissioner, and we'll keep that in mind, but we'll also follow what CDC and Health Department recommends as practices if we implement things.
I agree with David, and I really think to keep our people healthy, I mean, and like I said, I've worked in these types of things for a long time, and it happens. People come to work sick, and to keep our employees healthy, I think that it's a good thing if we look into that, because if we wait until we have an issue, it's like last week on the radio, they talked about air travel, and I heard this gentleman say, he said, we have to do something before the horse gets out of the barn. And I said to my radio, the horse is already out of the barn.
Yeah, it's out.
We needed to do something and be proactive to protect our employees.
Any other discussions or thoughts?
Madam Chair, I ask that you request the board consider the motion read, so you
Thank
don't
you,
have to
sir.
read it again.
Thank you, sir. The clerk will call the roll.
Gibson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Smelter absent. Connor,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the operations plan is approved.
Madam Chair, I move that the chairman of the board be authorized to modify the previously approved COVID-19 operations plan, if necessary, up until the Board of Commissioners meet again.
Second.
Moved by Geiger, support by Connor. Discussion. It's my thought that if something were to change as fast as it has changed since Friday, we may need to update our plan before our next meeting, which we will discuss next. So rather than have to convene to have consensus, I thought maybe it was a preemptive strike in case we should have to adjust again.
when do you see us meeting again?
I would like to have that meeting on April 14th. I think that because we moved today's meeting from a COW meeting to a Board of Commissioner meeting, I would like to cancel next week's Board of Commissioner meeting because we've already completed work for the month. The 31st is the 5th Tuesday, and then I would move to, or I would recommend that we cancel the Board of Commissioner meeting on April 7th and just
mean the
plan.
COW?
Yeah, that one. The COW meeting, and plan to meet on the Board of Commissioner meeting scheduled for April 14th. If there is an emergency or something comes up that we are discouraged from meeting on the 14th, I think we will be able to meet towards the end of April, and we will at least have one meeting in April where we can conduct business and pay the bills.
I've never gone more than 2 weeks in 10 years without a Board of Commissioners meeting.
Well, you've
This is
never
gonna-
had a COVID-19 virus either, so.
Yeah, and you can't go anywhere or do anything.
Well, exactly. You can't even go to the movies or out to eat unless you're going to eat in your car. So, any more discussion on the chair authorized to modify the agreement, the plan? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Jackson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Smelter absent, Connor,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved. So discussion of regarding future meeting dates. The chair would entertain a motion to cancel the March 24th scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners
So moved.
Support?
and to cancel the April 7th Committee of the Whole meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
We did provide a more detailed motion.
Where is
It
that?
would, if I can read it, would be
Sure.
to cancel both the March 24 Board of Commissioners meeting, the April 7th Committee of the Whole meeting pursuant to federal, state, and local COVID-19 directives, orders, and recommendations, and approval to authorize the county administrator to approve prepaids, claims, and commissioner reimbursements until such time that the Board of Commissioners reconvenes.
I had that someplace and I don't know where it went. Did I give it to you, Pam? Sorry, Michael. So, yeah.
Was it on a page 2? Because I only have a page 1. No? Oh.
I just didn't print it.
Okay.
So it would be, I move to, so we have a motion to cancel both of the meetings, but I will reread this. I move to approve cancellation of the March 24th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting and the April 7th Committee of the Whole meeting pursuant to federal, state, and local cboc 19 directives, orders, and recommendations, and approval to authorize the county administrator to approve prepaids, claims, and commissioner reimbursements until such time that the Board of Commissioner reconvenes.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Geiger. Support by Gibson. And I know I had 2 other motions on the floor, but I think this one will will work.
Withdraw my second.
So any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Parker,
Yes.
Smelter absent, Connor,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved. That, my dear friends, is because I am concerned about the health of a quorum of my Board of Commissioners, and I do not want to draw you here for any extra meetings if I can at all help it. I have 4 senior members on this board that are in that special category where they get sick, and they are
kinda
forecasted
wipe you
to
out,
be.
wouldn't it?
Exactly. And so I need Michael to be able to pay the bills and keep things moving in the event that y'all are really quarantined at home.
I'm sure gonna miss you guys, though.
Call me.
Yeah.
All right.
You mean
FaceTime
the
me.
senior people? Is that what you're saying, Dan?
Oh, no, I wasn't.
He needs to see his
I wasn't
peeps.
saying that.
All right.
Chair, I move to allow 80 hours of sick leave for county employees to use during this unprecedented time to reduce the spread of COVID-19.
Support.
Support by Jackson. Discussion. So this morning, we got a letter from Oliver Van Dyke. He would be our insurance.
Bruce Waldecker, and the company is
Waldecker
Oliver
Company.
Van Dyke, yep.
And The House of Representatives recently passed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act on Friday, March 13th, and so I'm sure that's at the national level. It applies to all employers with over 500 employees. There appears to be no exemptions for small employers of any size. The bill has yet to pass the Senate and may undergo revisions, but we believe some form of the bill will pass soon. The thought that we discussed this morning was to offer 80 hours of sick leave only to be used during this crisis, and once the crisis is over, if you haven't used your 80 hours, that leave disappears. There is quite a bit of provision in what has been passed by the House. It requires all employers to provide 10 days of sick leave in addition to what we already have. There are some people who haven't been here long enough to have 10 days worth of sick leave. And after, 8 days, 7 or 8 days, staff would be qualified to get short-term disability or to use their short-term disability in lieu of PTO or sick time. So I think it's just the legislature's way of helping us through this. If you're, quarantined because you've been exposed and you never have symptoms and you test negative, then, you come back to work. But if your kids are sick, your mom is sick, or some, other person, they define who is qualified under this that you can take the time off for. And I'm sure that there's other FLMA accommodations that are written into this bill. It far supersedes what we discussed this morning. Our idea was, keep people home if they're sick, keep people home if they're taking care of their kids or whoever, and don't make them worry about how am I going to take care of this or am I going to get a paycheck. Just stay home and get better. So there is something legislatively, and I'm sure the Senate will probably move on it quickly because of the severity.
To frame this just a little bit, again, the devil's in the details, but we would not, these would not be hours that would be bankable or cashable, and they would be for sickness or illness, not for if you made child care. Now, if your child is sick, it's intended to keep employees from feeling that they have to come to work if they're ill, whether they, in case they don't have, or I guess regardless whether they have banked sick time or not, we will use this if you may first. But for child care, that's a little different issue that folks are going to have to work through individually. We can't, unfortunately, solve all the issues. We're trying to make sure that what we do is protect, if you may, our workforce from getting ill. So, yeah.
But they don't have to use what they already have first?
I would envision that we would use this first, and the reason is that you still will have some folks that might feel like I may have limited time, or I want to bank it. I think that in this case, because of the situation, my recommendation would be we just clear the deck, if you may, and say if during this period of time, if you're going to be sick or if you're sick and need to be off, this time will be what's counted. And then it just, I guess for lack of a better term, kind of clears the deck for everybody and doesn't put folks in a position where they're thinking, oh, I don't want to use all my sick time up. If I'm
feeling good today, I'll go in.
I'll go, yeah.
Right.
What if it's something else? I mean, I fell and broke my arm.
Then
Yeah,
that
is
would
this
be
Corona
PTO.
sick time, or is this
well,
sick time?
Sick time.
That would be the
Yeah,
regular
that would
sick
be the
time.
regular sick
Oh,
time.
okay.
Yep.
This is to cover the 2-week.
And the legislation
Oh, but I mean, what
calls
if I
it,
fell and broke my arm during the 2-week period, but they would use what they already have? It wouldn't be this 80 hours.
the legislation specifically says it would be emergency sick leave only to be used for COVID-19.
Okay,
So we are preemptively
I get it, okay, that's what I meant.
trying to create
The
this.
same way I would see it
And we
related
discussed
to
this before this
COVID.
email came this morning, so.
Okay,
So there, I'm assuming there will be some testing required if you're using this 80 hours of sick leave?
Again, you know, there's, as we heard Colette say, right now, testing doesn't, people aren't getting tested. You're just, you're supposed to contact your healthcare provider and then get guidance at that point. But not a lot of testing is available. So if you show those symptoms, it sounds like if you're in that age group that's not at a high risk, they're just telling you to self-quarantine and monitor it. We would do the same thing. What we would, is how we would have to handle it at this point. So it could be a situation where somebody has COVID-19-like symptoms, the flu, but it could be the flu in that case. We won't know, and this time will apply. But if it's an obvious, to your point, Vivian, I broke my arm, and it has nothing,
Do with
then
COVID.
you're going to use your typical
Okay.
sick time.
All
This is for those, to the best we can narrow it down, COVID-related.
I just wanted to
It's a
ask.
great-
And your
great question. I
vacation to
appreciate that.
Key West is not COVID-19.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Your vacation to Key West, because you're self-quarantining, does not get covered under this. That is your PTO time. And I've heard those fares are fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
any further discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to allow 80 hours of sick leave for county employees to use during this unprecedented time to reduce the spread of COVID-19.
So moved.
The clerk will call the roll.
Smoker absent. Connor.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Wing.
Yes, the item is approved. Wow. Michael, do you have anything to report?
I would just say thank you very much for everybody's patience, both your care and your willingness to address the concerns that we have. So just a whirlwind right now, and just appreciate all of your willingness to address some of these issues and help us have the tools that we need to keep things running. So,
Thank you, sir. Chairperson's report. Local Emergency Planning Commission Committee met on Friday. I think the meeting lasted 7 minutes, and the next hour was spent on discussing COVID-19. At this time, Eaton County has already opened their emergency operations thing, and it's mostly virtual, just to deal with all the information being processed. I haven't had an opportunity to talk with Jim this morning about doing that here. One of the comments that I heard is so Eaton County can qualify for any state aid that might come out. If it gets to that point, we will take the necessary steps to open the EOC, but at this time, I am not doing that. My phone has been off the hook for 3 days, so I'm very open to lots of communication, and we'll just keep taking it day by day, sometimes hour by hour. That being said, I think almost all of my extra stuff is canceled. We canceled the Thursday meeting. The next 2 weeks, we're kind of laying low. The Community Corrections Advisory Board has been canceled. The Community Action Agency meeting, they are encouraging us to call and rather than visit the meeting live. They probably have something that needs to be voted on urgently before we get out of date on something, because their grant cycles are crazy. So other than that, I wish you all in good health. I think that to consider this a doomsday event would be premature. I think that as Americans, we are probably one of the most fit populations on the planet and able to handle the diversity presented to us in a very dignified manner. So contrary to what social media says. Commissioner Connor.
Thank you. Thank you. I attended the Conservation District meeting last week. We kind of went over the phases of conservation, some of the things that are going on. I also attended Yankee Springs Township meeting, and I missed the LEPC, but I did attend the solid waste oversight. We're trying to get our master or our strategic plan, and we've got a good handle on that. My area agency on aging, we had a public hearing, which was canceled yesterday. So, and that what revolves the work plan going forward. My COA meeting today was canceled, but their Gun Lake Improvement Board will be meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. So there's only 9 of us, and 2 I already know won't be there. So we're even might be below the 10.
Commissioner Gibson.
I had a transit meeting yesterday. You got the information they canceled their Saturdays, and they're gonna run in the evening till 5:30. They're changing their hours, and they are going to ask people if they want time off because they've lost a lot of the school. They had 4 buses transporting children to school, and they've lost some of their hours, so they're gonna ask people to voluntarily take time off so they don't have to lay anybody off.
Commissioner Jackson.
Everything has been canceled. JPC last night was canceled. Animal Shelter was canceled. West Michigan Regional Planning canceled. I was at Hope Township last night, but other than that, it's all going to be the same this month, I believe. So,
Commissioner Geiger.
I'm good. Everything's canceled.
And Commissioner Parker.
Yeah, Thornapple Township meeting last night. They are making the decision to temporarily close their office to the public. I know you've got that notice, but for the press, through Sunday, April 5th. From now on, there are no board meetings at all. Administrative staff will still continue to actively monitor and plan. They will be available by phone if you need to get a hold of them. So that's just April 5th through Sunday, April 5th. And then so Monday would be their first meeting again in April. So does anybody know whether the MAC conference is canceled?
Not yet.
Okay.
They haven't decided yet.
Okay.
Correct. Not yet. They have notified that they'll continue to monitor it. And for those that choose to or would like to cancel, they are offering a full refund.
And Linda, my wife, is an RN, and she is really getting everything sanitized, and she's been, she's part of a parish nurse thing at our church, and we ended up in Muskegon to find sanitizer about 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, and so she's really feels that this is really important to do, so I'm going along with whatever she says. So. But again, I'm going to miss you guys. So.
Thank you, sir. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the Board of Commissioners may do so for up to 3 minutes. Rick, thank you for sticking it out.
I'm the last one left.
Yes.
It just shows you I'm stubborn. Rick Moore, Berry County Parks. I used to be a mechanic back when you could work on your own vehicle, and I still love tools. And Harbor Freight has a tool that you were talking about, and they sell them for $24 unless you use a super coupon, and then they're around $14.
Yep.
But this is an infrared digital temperature gauge, and it just gives you the number. I got the expensive $400 one that shows the whole picture and what all the temperatures are for around my apartment houses. So you can find a leak in a refrigerator door or a hot wire in the wall where there's too many things on the circuit, or where my insulation that I put in 35 years ago is settling down and there's heat around the top of the house. And so these are really handy because when you have the right tool, the job is half done. And the guys downstairs or in any other building for $14 can just point it at your head and see what your temperature is. You see them advertised on TV all the time that they're doing that in foreign countries. They're always, pointing at somebody's forehead to read the temperature. Well, it comes in handy for all kinds of things, and this is a one easy way to alleviate a lot of fears. And for $14 for each piece of equipment, that's extremely reasonable. So thank you very much for the opportunity and for bringing out some hand cleaner. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Just a comment on that, just don't point the infrared into their eye.
That's right.
Well, no, the infrared part it's the laser pointer part of it that you don't point into your eyes. The infrared part, it just reads your temperature.
Well, okay, the pointer part in their eyes.
Any other business to come before the board? I just confess Psalm 91 over all of my board members, and I just say no plague will come nigh your dwelling, and that the angels will keep you all safe. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
There being no further business and without objection, the board will now adjourn.